afternoon, wherever you are in the world and what platform you are watching this and or listening to. This is Wrestling with Faith, the podcast that discusses all things wrestling related, as well as all things faith-based and also mental health issues as well. Always remember, it is a strength to reach out and ask for help. There is always help out there for everybody. And you can get this podcast, as well as the many others that we've done as well on these particular topics, via youtube.com/wrestling with faith, also on Twitter at faith_wrestling, and also on facebook.com/wrestling with faith UK. And let's get straight to it. A hot talent. Really, really good talent as well that I've been privileged to see so many videos on in the past few weeks since I first saw him on AEW Collision. It is none other than the amazing, super talented, and a guy who you're going to get to know the name of, all wrestling fans out there, Mr. Jeremy Prophet. Jeremy, the most important question I'm going to ask you today, how are you, sir?
Well, like always, I am feeling fantastic, and I am thrilled to get to share my experiences here with a brand new audience, a brand new set of fans, to let them know what Jeremy Prophet is all about. Not just Jeremy Prophet, the wrestler that you can go on YouTube and see highlights and see matches and other interviews, but Jeremy Prophet, the human being, the man behind the man behind what you see on your TV screen. So I'm really excited to really get down to the nitty gritty and let people know what I'm all about on all those aspects that your fine show brings to people's attention.
God bless you, brother. Let's get straight into it, man. Obviously, what a smooth link. I love that. So let's get straight to it. Jeremy, obviously, you are, without doubt, an outstanding wrestling talent that people are going to get to know more and more about, especially on the mainstream shows. There was a lot of footage of you've alluded to you on there, you doing the indies. You've stepped in the ring with some big names and some big dudes as well. Most noticeably, obviously, I mentioned earlier on in the show, AEW Collision, Mr. Powerhouse Hobbs himself. Just talk. I mean, let's just go with that first of all. What was that experience like for you on a? I mean, let's be honest, it's a relatively new format. It's AEW Collision. What was that experience like, man? Talk me about the build-up to that, and obviously stepping in the ring with a unit such as Will Powerhouse Hobbs.
Well, what most people don't realize is there's quite a story behind what you saw on Saturday on Collision, because it's really a story and a testament to always being ready and always being prepared for when opportunity knocks. Because unlike most of the extra talent that was there, in my case, I only found out about this a mere few days before. I found out officially on Wednesday of that week that there may be an opportunity there at AEW, a lot of which was just me knocking on doors, me staying in contact with the right people, and just asking, hey, is there anything? Is there anything? Is there a spot for me? Can I get on this show? That's what I did. I did that for weeks on end until the responses were getting better. It was, well, I'll look into that and get back to you. Or, okay, I'm hearing some rumblings that we may have something on one of the upcoming Canada dates. Then it was going to be for the events that are taking place actually a week and 2 weeks from now. And so it was just this constant back and forth of there's going to be something, but we don't know what it is yet. And then just in staying on top of people and having those same weekly conversations, I was told, okay, well, there's an opportunity for a match with Powerhouse Hobbs, who'll be in action on Collision. It's very possible, you could get that spot. Can you be in Toronto? And I said, okay, of course, I'll go to Toronto. I'll go to Toronto. I'll go to Calgary. I'll go to, anywhere where you're having an event. I got to take these opportunities while I can, because they're so few and far between. And lo and behold, they were true to their word. I showed up. Hobbs was already up to speed. And it's kind of funny to say, but of all the extras there, I think I was the first one, or maybe the only one at the time, before the matches were announced, who knew what I would be doing on Collision. So it's really just a case of I'm not someone who kind of takes it easy and then tries to sprint to the finish line. I'm constantly in a sprint, constantly in a dead heat. Always training, always making sure my body looks the way it needs to, always making sure my wrestling is exactly what it needs to be, my nutrition, my all of these things. Just for me, I can get the call right now, and I live on standby. I could be ready to go at a moment's notice. So for me, it was just another day at the office. People ask me, well, were you nervous being out there? And was it like this was different than wrestling on a weekly basis on the indies? And I say to them, no, because to me, yeah, the lights and the big stage and the fans, that's more than what I'm used to. But once you're inside that 20 by 20 ring, that's what I do every week. So for me, that was easy. I mean, I was in the ring during the commercial break. I was loose. I was waving to fans. I was making jokes. I actually did a podcast just yesterday, and the host happened to be there, and they had a sign representing Quebec, which is my province where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I pointed to it and was having a little banter with them. And then, I had to feed my name to Dasha, who was the ring announcer. And she was like, I hope I get it right. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Let's have fun. We're having fun. I'm having fun. Have fun. No stress.
Awesome.
Even though it's live TV, even though, we come back from commercial, something goes wrong, then, you end up being the featured attraction on Botchamania. But hey, I do this time in, time out, week in, week out. I've been going strong, 19 years, never been injured, very few slip ups. So I know what I'm doing, and I take it all in stride. I'm not going to be nervous when I'm in there doing something I love and getting one of the biggest opportunities of my career.
Yeah, praise God for that, man. And I love the attitude as well of always being ready. You can't sleep, can you? I mean, you know yourself, coming from Canada in general, which has got decades of wrestling prestige. Would you say as a Canadian that anybody who sets out to have a career as a wrestler, would you say that the bar is pretty high anyway, due to the history, the heritage of wrestling in Canada? Or does someone like yourself just put that aside and just think, no, it's not about what's gone before. I'm just going to do me and just represent me and just see what comes of that. I mean, what's your thoughts when you first start getting into the wrestling scene, as a Canadian?
Without a doubt, we have a huge legacy of great talent that we have to live up to. And that is something that I shoulder the burden of every time I step into the ring. I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing the great history of wrestlers that we have here in Quebec, that we have throughout Canada. Wrestlers like the Harts, wrestlers like Roddy Piper, like Chris Jericho, like here in Quebec, like the Rougeaus, like the Vachons, like the Leducs. I take all of that on in my performance, that I want to be the next in the long line of greats. It's actually my goal to be the first Canadian person of color heavyweight champion. I want to do that. I want to accomplish that. So for me, it's about representing the wonderful country that I'm from and doing justice to it on a world stage.
Awesome, brother. And you know what? I've got every faith that you can be the guy to achieve that, as well, because I've seen some of the footage. I've seen some of the shoots that you've been doing. Most notably, recently I was watching you and Carlito, as well, and it's, you just look like it's not just another day at the office, because I don't want to make it come across as though you're being blasé. But when you said earlier that you say, I'm always ready, you don't seem to be, on the footage that I've been looking at, just dazzled by it. It's just like, there's another guy across me there. This guy may well be in the shop window, may be a well-known wrestler, somebody in the industry, but I've got to put me in that shop window now as well, and do the best I can, and make sure, more importantly, the chemistry's there. And you look like the kind of guy who's not afraid to get heat from the crowd as well as praise as well. I mean, when you were first decided to become a wrestler, what was the inspiration behind that? What was it that just went, that's me?
Well, I personally feel that I've always wanted to be a wrestler since the first time I saw professional wrestling. It had that effect on me where I said, this is something that if you can do this and you can earn your living, doing it, then this is what I want to do as a career. I saw Bret Hart wrestle for the first time. The first wrestling match I've ever seen was Bret Hart against Blake Beverly. And oftentimes I feel I do these interviews, I give so much credit to Bret, and I don't give enough credit to Blake Beverly. I haven't had the chance to meet him, but that was the first match I saw. And I do believe that if it were maybe another pairing, maybe I wouldn't have been as interested in wrestling. But that's what captivated me as a young child and made me say that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to watch every week, which I've done even to this day. I watch tons of wrestling. At the bare minimum, I watch all of the mainstream programming, the WWE, AEW. At bare minimum, I watch every bit of content that they put out during a week, but also expand my horizons into other brands of wrestling as well, just to stay sharp and learn new things and see what's in at the moment. And yeah, and then eventually, once I finished high school, I decided, okay, now is the time. Now that my education is secured, and I continued on in education even beyond high school into college. But that was where I said, now I want to add professional wrestling and that direction. I want to have that as my trade that I will master and be able to perform in and reach the highest level of. So it was very meticulous. It was very strategic, and I recognize, which I would think most wrestlers should, but I recognize that it's not easy, and you have to work very hard at it. But I've never been a stranger to hard work. Again, just look at my matches. Those matches don't just happen on sheer brute talent. And a lot of people may tell you that, but that's not the actual truth. Good matches, 5-star matches, whatever you want to call them, they happen through hard work. What you put in is what you get out. You don't just wing it. You don't just improvise. And then you have these tremendous matches like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. You don't just wing it and that happens. You put in hard work and effort. And I am always willing to outwork anybody. I'm always aiming for the best match on the card. If it's not the best match on the card, then the paying customer definitely got it. If Jeremy Prophet's match is not the best match on the card, the paying customer definitely got a good show because I know how good my matches are. I'm a fan of my own matches, which maybe that's a bit of a faux pas, but I think in the same way that a pastry chef can be proud of a beautiful cake that they make, I'm very proud of the matches that I put out. So again, it's a case of hard work and talent. And there's an expression that says, hard work will always beat talent that refuses to work hard. I kind of view myself as someone who has been blessed with a tremendous amount of athletic, physical, and mental talent, but also I want to be the hardest worker in every room. So I do not shy away from doing hard work, doing dirty work, doing whatever will make my performances stand out, whatever will get me to that next level, and what will help me to make my living in this industry. Because I'm very serious about this. I'm not a weekend warrior. I'm someone who I want to take on the biggest challenges this business has to offer. I travel a lot. I'm not content just being a big fish in a small pond. I meet a lot of these people, and they are the greatest wrestler in their small county or in their province or in their state. That's not enough for me. I don't want recognition and renown from a small territory. I want world recognition. I want world domination, if you will. I'm very serious about this, and I want to take on the biggest challenges. If I get word of someone being considered the best or they're the new hot act at this point, then I want to lock horns with them. I want to see how good they are. And it's like I always say, if they're as good as they are, then we'll have a fantastic match and the people will be treated to one of the best performances they've ever seen. But on the other hand, if they're not, they'll quickly be exposed, and I'll be happy to take their fan base and bring them along with me. And that's what it comes down to, is you can't proclaim yourself the best if you're not willing to back it up. It may sound confrontational, but I'm a fighter. I want to challenge the so-called best, because if you're to prove that you're the best, you have to face the best, whether they be the best in your town, the best in your country, the best in the world. I'm in this to actually face the best and prove my worth against theirs. And that just comes down to hard work. I'm always willing to outwork the next person.
I love it, man. And do you know what? It's not a bad thing to, in any way, shape, or form, to back yourself and believe yourself. You have to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe in you, how can you expect other people to believe in what you're doing as well? If you don't buy into yourself, how can you sell yourself to other people? It's just you're doomed from the word go. And it's great that I love the fact that you say that you love to hear about you. You've got your ear to the ground about who's proclaiming to be the big I am in other places as well. And I love that. I mean, in terms of obviously locking horns with people, like you say, would you agree as well that the chemistry has to be absolutely spot on in order to have a great match? Or would you back yourself as the individual to still pull that match up to a standard if you felt that your opponent was a bit more hot air as opposed to hot talent?
Well, we encounter all kinds of different opponents. There are opponents who are very eager to want to have great matches, but they maybe lack the talent. There are opponents who are maybe a little more self-aware and know that they have a certain comfort zone and their skills will not go beyond that, regardless of who they face. So I think it's important to have a balance. This is something I often talk about with Speedball Mike Bailey, who's a very dear friend of mine, many years, been friends for a good close to 18 years now. He and I came up in this business at the same time, and he's doing such fantastic things and continuing to evolve, much like myself. We talk about this, how there are key things that are what's considered objective in wrestling, that you perform in front of any audience and it'll always get over. So it's important to know what those things are for you as your brand, as what you're selling to the paying customer, because regardless of what anyone says, we are in the people-pleasing business. You have to give the people what they want so that they keep coming back to see you. So you need to know what it is that you do as a performer that will always get you over. And then no matter who you face as an opponent, you know that you have these key things that you do that people pay to see you do. And as long as you can do those things, it doesn't matter who you're in there with. I also believe in trying to pick up my opponent. I believe in, talking to them and finding out what it is that they want to do, or maybe what they want to showcase, but don't often get the right type of opponent to showcase it. I pride myself on being very versatile, that I can work with anybody, any style, anywhere. I'm not limited to just one style. You ask me what my style is in wrestling. It's a tough question to answer because I think that Jeremy Prophet brings just about everything to the table. I bring the entertainment, I bring the high flying, I bring the violence, I bring the technique. You watch, and one of the things I'm very proud of, there are some wrestlers out there, you can watch 5 of their matches and you'll see the same things, the same moves in the same order, and that's really all they bring to the table, and that's not wrestling.
Yeah,
and
I agree 100% with that. Yeah.
And you can take any matches, you go at random, take any 5 Jeremy Prophet matches at random, and you will not see a homogenized nature to what I'm doing in there. It's not the same. You don't see any 2 matches of mine that are the same, and I pride myself on that because I'm not someone who's just limited to a standard routine shine and a standard routine comeback and moves in the same order. That's not me. That's not what I deliver.
Is that something that you're conscious of then, Jeremy? Sorry to interrupt there, but is that something that you're conscious of when you are wrestling, that you don't want to copy and paste almost, or you're conscious that it could be perceived that there is a copy and paste element to your wrestling? Because as you've alluded to there, some men and women are quite happy, and God bless them, they may be limited in their skill set and their talent and their fitness into being able to do certain things. But are you conscious that it's not a copy and paste for Jeremy Prophet?
Well, it's actually not a case of it being perceived as that. That part I don't care about as much. It's personal. It's me personally that I would be bored doing that. I would be bored having the same match every night. I've been on tours. I've been fortunate enough to do tours, 30-day tours, 3-week tours, 21-day tours, whatever you want to call them. And sometimes I'll get an opponent and they will want to do the same match every night. And I don't want that. I get it. It's easy. You can spend the rest of the time socializing and doing other things and being on your phone. But no, I want to create a unique masterpiece every time I step in the ring. When I get to wrestle an opponent multiple times, I don't want it to be the same. I want it to be completely different. I like to lay out the foundation of, okay, this is what we did last time. Now, in theory, you should know what I'm throwing at you and what you're throwing at me. So now we deviate it. Now there'll be counters. There'll be more things that, we can say, oh, well, you succeeded in doing that last time. So now I should have a counter for it. Obviously, I mean, if I were a fighter, it would be that same way. I wouldn't let someone in a fight, in a mixed martial arts fight, use their same techniques and have their same timing and be able to defeat me or accost me with it. I would do my tape study and I would make sure that I have counters and that they don't see the same version of me that they did the first time around. I bring the same attitude to wrestling, where I believe that, you know, you should challenge yourself as a performer to not just fall into routine, into complacency, and to just doing the same mundane things over and over and over. And I try to bring out the best in my opponents. Like, I'll say to them, you know, if there's something that you want to do, like, what's the thing that you've done that's gotten you the best reaction in your entire career? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, okay, so one, why aren't we doing that tonight? And two, why don't you do that every night? Because wrestling is that simple. Just do the things that get you the best reactions all the time, you know, and find different ways to bring them about, find different ways to window dress it. But, you know, if you're just going to go out and rely on doing the same match over and over, eventually you're going to run into an obstacle. In my case, I've been blessed to be one of the most middle-sized people, I think, in all of professional wrestling. I actually think I'm one of the most unique people in terms of the skill set that I have in every aspect of wrestling. But specifically that my size, being that I am around 6 feet or so, that I am around 210 pounds or so. I am the person who half of my matches are against people bigger than me, half are against people smaller than me. So I have to have a wide variety of skills to be able to still have outstanding matches with respect to the two size differentials that I'm handed almost on a week-to-week basis. It's really, I'm the bigger person, I'm the smaller person, I'm the bigger person, I'm the smaller person. So I have to wrestle big and I have to wrestle small, and I still have to be able to pull outstanding matches out of every type of opponent that I get. So it takes a wide variety of skills, but it also takes the willingness to put myself in an uncomfortable place, a place that might be uncomfortable for some. Because I feel some people, when building matches, they reach a point of, this is complicated. This is a lot to remember. This is hard. I don't reach those points. I just say, okay, this is more work, but it's going to be good. It's going to be rewarding. I've yet to reach the depth at which I no longer can remember, no longer can add. I've always had a good memory. I've always been willing to work and be willing to be comfortable within the uncomfortable. So I think it's a lot of mental fortitude on my part, combined with just a sheer work ethic, that, you know, to me, if ever I have to give in to any of these things and say, this is complicated, this is too much, that's my goal slipping away. That's my chance of making it to where I want to be in this sport, getting further and further, and I won't allow that to happen.
Awesome, and I just love the attitude. It's just radiating through this interview. The positivity, the self belief, and the willingness to work as well. You know, it's you've got to be able to put the graft in. You've got to be able to be flexible. You've got to be able to give the audience what you want, as well as giving yourself what you want as well. It's okay to be selfish to the point where you need to have the love for what you're doing. You need to keep, you know, and if things need to change to do that, then that's absolutely fine. You alluded to earlier on in the interview that, you know, you've been in the industry about 18, 19 years now. And what I want to ask you is, because you seem to have a really positive mental attitude. You're very positive. You're very the self-belief, as I say, is there. What changes have you seen since you first got into the industry, you know, worked with coaches, came up through, then you had your debuts and the different types of matches that you have? What changes have you seen on the indies and also in mainstream as well? And speaking to, you know, fellow professionals like Speedball and various others, positive changes towards the mental wealth, the mental health of performers, as well as just genuinely looking after people within in the industry. Have you seen positive changes behind the scenes and in territories that you've been with, or do you still feel there's a long way to go for the industry as a whole?
Well, I definitely think one of the most positive things to come out of the last couple of years was the speaking out movement, where people finally spoke out about a lot of these predators and got them out of the business. I think that definitely did a lot of good, and it showed that a lot can be accomplished simply through speaking up. I see myself in a lot of ways as a bit of an advocate when it comes to Canadian wrestlers. That I was one of the first people to explain how we were not being given a fair shot because of how strict and strenuous the American border is, and how a lot of these major companies are simply hiring what they consider the best talent, but really it was only the best American talent, the best talent from the United States of America. I would have countless interviews where people would talk about how WWE changed their hiring practices, and now they're hiring the best talent on the independent scene. And I would have to correct them, and sometimes very bluntly correct them and say, no, the American independent scene, because there are great wrestlers everywhere. There are great wrestlers here in Canada. There are great wrestlers in Australia. There are great wrestlers in the UK. There are great wrestlers in Germany. There are great wrestlers, I don't doubt, in South America. But when this boom happened, everyone just perceived that, oh, it's the wrestlers from PWG and from Evolve and from GCW who are the best wrestlers in the world because they have tremendous visibility. I can tell you firsthand, there are great wrestlers everywhere in the world. There are wrestlers in Canada who would put a lot of these so-called best wrestlers to shame, myself being one of them. But unfortunately, Canada wasn't getting its visibility. And I think that that's one thing that has slowly, I've tried to force that change. I've dealt with, negativity. I've dealt with people saying you shouldn't say these kinds of things, you're wrong. That doesn't faze me because I know I'm not wrong. And I've been taught that when you're not wrong, no one can ever prove that you're wrong. And that's kind of been my crusade, is to raise awareness for the wrestlers here in Canada who don't have the opportunity to go and perform in the United States, or who don't want to risk potentially getting a 5 to 10 year ban from going to the United States, because the acquisition of a work visa is not something that you come by that easily. In fact, the only companies that can actually get that, as far as I know, are WWE, AEW, Impact, as well as Defy somehow. So to be able to go and work legally, which would be the actual way to get to any of these companies that the major companies do scout from, it's not that easy. And so that's why I'm trying to explain that the attention from these companies needs to shift towards Canada, towards the companies that we have here, to scout talent directly out of Canada, provide them with the work visa, and then be able to showcase their talents on a world stage. So it's something I've been speaking out about, and why I draw that parallel between the speaking out movement and this movement for Canada is because I do believe that if enough people start talking about it, eventually it's going to get to the ears of the right people who will realize that there is a systemic problem that prevents Canadian wrestlers from being put on equal footing to our American counterparts. So it's something that I've taken to the ears of many people. It was something that was widely discussed during my 3 months at the Nightmare Factory, in speaking to Cody Rhodes and to QT Marshall, trying to get this to the ears of the major companies and explaining why a talent like Jeremy Prophet, who has all of the tools, has not had the same opportunities afforded to me as talent working the American independent scene, a lot of which I have locked horns with and ran circles around.
You see, I found this absolutely fascinating because, I mean, growing up as a wrestling fan myself, I've been a wrestling fan for over 40 years, right? So I've seen a lot in the way of, big Canadian wrestlers, well-known Canadian wrestlers, not just 30, 40 years ago. I'm talking generationally. You mentioned at the start, we talked about the Hearts. That's a done deal. If you know wrestling, you know the Hart Foundation, you know the Hart family. But then, obviously, then we go to the next generation, which is your probably your Chris Jericho era, in terms of mainstream. And but obviously, around that as well, we had the Quebecers. Obviously, I know you were coached by one of those, and you got the Chris Jerichos. It might not be popular to bring up, but if we just focus on it purely from a wrestling perspective, Chris Benoit as well. And then you get the next generation coming through, which is around sort of your generation of wrestler, which is like obviously like yourself, Kenny Omega, and wrestlers like that. I personally, as a UK wrestling fan who's completely naive to the politics of what you just mentioned there, I find it staggering how difficult it is for Canadian wrestlers to be seen. Legit. Like I genuinely thought there was some kind of synergy there between America and Canada, at least, let alone the connections that we have obviously now with Japan and Britain and Australia as well. That's blown my mind, man. Like legitimately, I didn't realize that that is something that you've been literally banging your head against, and probably, and no doubt, fellow professionals have been banging their head against for a long time.
Yeah, and it's been an uphill battle, and it's one that at the start of my career I didn't even realize, but that's the obstacle that we're up against. And if you look at it, even the Canadians who have managed to make it to a mainstream platform, you look at any of them, like Kevin Owens and Ethan Page, Kenny
Yeah, of
Omega,
course. Yeah,
you know, you look at Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. I could go on and on. Eva Luno and
yeah,
Stu
yeah,
Blues. These are all Canadians who earned their merits working the American independent scene, and for the most part, working the American independent scene illegally.
yeah.
And it sends a message from a lot of these companies that the idea is to work illegally so that we can hire you to work legally. And I just
Wow.
see a fundamental systemic problem in that that needs to be addressed. It's to a point where, even if you're not getting paid to go work for an American company, they have the right to stop you at the border by saying that you're taking a job away from an American citizen. So that's where it becomes very tricky, and a lot of wrestlers don't want to run that risk. And I oftentimes I'll get a response in saying, "Well, that's just the way it is, and they should run the risk because no risk, no reward."
But it doesn't
But
make it right, though, does it? It doesn't make it right just because that's the way it is.
no, it's as ludicrous as, imagine if a grand Fortune 500 company just decided to tell potential employees, "Well, before you get to work for us legally, we have to see how well you do doing illegal work, and then we'll hire you." It's that asinine and backwards. And so that's why I'm working very hard to change the mentality, to raise awareness of that. And it helped that I was able to head down there to Atlanta, thankfully, through being selected by QT Marshall and Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy, and
Yeah.
getting to go down and explain that, and be down there for 3 months and explain why it is that so few Canadians are getting hired by major companies. I've made the joke over and over about WWE, saying that in the last 3 years alone, they've fired more Canadians than they've hired. And if they fired even one Canadian in the last 3 years, then they've also fired more Canadians than they've hired.
Yeah.
That's just simply the way it is. Canadians are not getting hired from their own independency. So I'm trying to be a role model of sorts to show that you can make it to a major company through performing in your own country on the merits that you earned there, and not having to go and perform in the select few American independent promotions that they seem to constantly choose their talent from. I'm trying to show that you can have a talent on the level of Jeremy Prophet, which I believe my talent is amongst the best in the world, that exists in a place without being showcased on those so-called top level American independent promotions. So
Amen.
that's been my crusade, and that's something that I am not going to stop. I am determined. I am a fighter, the likes of which this industry has not seen, I would say, in a very long time. Determined, willing to destroy any obstacle in my path with every fiber of my being, to be able to achieve my dreams and achieve something great for my fellow countrymen, and to blaze a trail, to not just follow in anyone's footsteps, but to blaze my own trail. And unfortunately, it's not easy. But like I said, I'm no stranger to hard work. So it doesn't matter if it's the easy path, it is the right path. And it's the one that I'm going to take and show people that this absolutely can be done. And hopefully these words ring true to the ears of the decision makers, ring true right to Tony Khan's doorstep. And I can show that this is something that can happen, and then the attention will shift towards Canada, because there are tons more just like me.
God bless you, brother. And listen, man, I'm going to be praying for you all the way, man, with that fight, because it's 100% worth fighting. And we as wrestling fans, we want to see a more broader spectrum of wrestler as well. We do. It's as simple as that. Jeremy, I'm really conscious, brother. We're slowly closing on this, running out of time. You've got 2.5 minutes, my friend. Where can people find you, reach out to you, get you booked The platform's yours, brother. Plug
Much
away.
appreciated. Well, you can find me, much like you did, on Twitter at Jeremy Prophet, JeremyProphet. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Jeremy Prophet, spelled much the same way. Jeremy Prophet on Facebook. You can see me on YouTube. Pretty much just type in hashtag Jeremy Prophet. You can see me on Jofo in the Ring, which is my podcast as well. Tons of great episodes, great guests, legends, independent stars, wrestling fans of note as well. So you can see me on there, and you can catch me on the upcoming episodes of Wrestling Academy. Again, Jacques Rougeau has been such a tremendous benefactor to me. So you can see me on the upcoming episodes that'll be hitting YouTube for Wrestling Academy. You can see that at wrestling-academy.ca, where I will be commentating this season's action and maybe stepping in the ring if they need me. But it's actually one of the best vehicles to showcase the greatest talent in Canada. We have talent from all over the country coming in, performing for the chance to win $10,000. So 2 men and 1 woman will be chosen to win $10,000 and the chance to do like myself and train with a scholarship for 3 months at the Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, and the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. So if you want to see everything that I've talked about, including myself, but also great Canadian talent, check out wrestling-academy.ca for all the info, and you will not be disappointed. I guarantee it.
Superb. And Jeremy, I'd appreciate it, man, if you wouldn't mind dropping me a tweet with these links as well, so we can get it uploaded to Spotify and all the other different broadcast spectrums that we are, using the Wrestling with Faith platform for. Jeremy Prophet, it has been awesome. It's been an education for me as well as a wrestling fan. And brother, you do not know dead air. You can feel it, and it's quality as well, what you've come out with today. I really, really appreciate your time. This has been Wrestling with Faith with Jeremy Prophet. And guys, if you're entertained by this podcast, get on and watch this guy in the ring. God bless.
And before we go, one quick thing I just need to say is I also look forward to coming out to your neck of the woods at some point and performing for the wonderful fans in the UK. I've already been in talks with a couple promotions, most notably World Pro Wrestling. So hopefully I will get to head out to your side of the pond and be able to meet the wonderful fans over there and show them live and in person what I'm all about.
Dude, I've been nailed on first in the queue to see that, man, as well. 100%. Jeremy Prophet, it's been a blessing, brother. Take care of yourself.